Karuna.
Thank you, Mark. Now, conservationists are claiming that ivory poaching may cause Asian elephants to lose the gene that allows them to develop their tusks. Now, to talk about this woeful tale with us this morning, we've got Dr. Paul Toyne from the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Very well indeed. Now, listen, I thought that the international ivory trade was outlawed about more than 20 years ago.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, a law came into force in 1989. However, there are still problems, and it's basically the same old story. It's to do with law enforcement and having the capacity to actually enforce the laws. And the poor old Asian elephant, I mean, it's suffering not only from poaching, but habitat loss. I mean, the Asian elephant used to be found from Syria or modern Iraq all the way across to China. But now its range has significantly shrunk because it lives in forests, and also because of the problems with poaching.
The Asian elephant is more in danger than the African elephant.
Yes, I mean, to put things into context, we're talking about a total population of somewhere around 35,000 individuals, of which obviously the majority live in India, but you still find some across in Indochina and Indo-Malay. And, you know, the African elephant, which is a distant cousin of the Asian elephant, I mean, there's over 300,000 of them in Africa. But the interesting thing about the Asian elephant is that not all Asian elephants have tusks, and it's normally the males that have tusks. What we're finding is that it's harder to find males bearing tusks. And that simply is because man is selecting these tuskers obviously for poaching, because they take their big teeth, which is the tusk, which is ivory, for use both in traditional Chinese medicine but also for ornaments. And of course this is totally illegal. And so what we're seeing is, because it's harder to find these males with tusks and because they're being removed from the population, that we could live in a world where the Asian elephant is born with or never has or expresses tusks.
Just going through that information, you're quite right, Paul. I've seen that in Sri Lanka, found recently more than 90% of the population are not growing tusks because of this poaching effect.
Yeah, absolutely,
amazing,
yeah.
isn't it?
And what you have to consider is the tusk is an important part of the male's, makeup, if you like. Yeah. It's used for sexual displays. It's used for fighting off other male elephants. And so, I mean, just imagine if the poor old male losing its tusks. It's probably, it's not good news.
What's been done about it? The government obviously needed governmental support. This is the thing, and pressure on the poachers.
Yes, what we need is effective management of existing reserves and national parks, which are set aside for elephants. And then we need proper law enforcement. We need anti-poaching brigades. I mean, they've been very successful for tigers in countries like Nepal, Bhutan and India. And we need the same kind of level of protection for the Asian elephant. That's really, really key to it. Also, we need to have, I mean, sadly, another interesting fact is that over 300 people a year die in India because of being trampled to death by an elephant. And we need to manage that conflict. I mean, we're looking in part of the world where 20% of the population of the planet live. So we need to try and reduce the conflicts that exist between elephants and man. And we need, basically corridors, so-called elephant corridors, because the Asian elephant also migrates. So we need to give it space to move from one area to another. And of course that means not, going through areas where man lives.
It's one of these things that you look at and you think, what is the price of ivory? I mean, it must be phenomenal. This is the thing, people are making an awful lot of money out of it, aren't they, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, crime pays. That's the sad fact, and we've got to stop that. The trade in illegal wildlife products, including ivory or tiger parts or whatever, is very lucrative. And we need to see the business people who are helping or facilitating this trade, we need to see them prosecuted.
What sort of conservationist lobbying is there in India, within India? Because there is a strong lobbying, isn't there?
There is, yes. And indeed, the Indian government and the wildlife departments are active. They are trying to help. They are trying to crack down on poaching. They recognise, I mean, the Asian elephant is a symbol for the culture of India and the Indian subcontinent. I mean, just imagine if we're living in a world without Asian elephants. I mean, it's sad, isn't it?
Sad,
poor old Kipling's animal without tusks, again, is another sad thing. So there is political will and support, but, it's a question of resources and priorities. Obviously, these countries, there's education, there's health issues, but at the end of the day, if we don't protect our natural environment, we will also suffer. I mean, the forests where these elephants live provide important for us, for example, medicinal plants or timber or the regulation of local climate or provision of fresh water. These are very important services that we require. So losing the forests and losing the elephants, at the end of the day, it will come back to us and we'll be suffering. And that's a very important point to make.
Paul, what are you doing in this?
Well,
specifically?
I'm trying to promote responsible forestry. For example, here in the UK, you go into a store and you buy a product, say, for example, a wooden door. Do you know where that wooden door's come from? And do you know whether it's been managed in a sustainable manner? And when I talk about sustainability, I mean that there's both benefits to society and to the environment. And what I try and promote is a label called the Forest Stewardship Council. So if you go into your big DIY stores now, you'll see this label FSC, and that gives the consumer the confidence that that product's come from a sustainably managed forest. And I think that's really important. What we need to do is crack down on illegal timber coming into Europe, and we need to give the consumer the confidence that they're buying a product which is not being detrimental to the environment or to people themselves. I think that's what I'm trying to do.
So watch out for the FSC label when you go into your local superstore. We won't mention the specific superstore, but FSC. Dr. Paul Toyne, thank you ever so much, Paul, for coming in yet again, bringing us up to date on the what's happening, the awful world of poaching with ivory tusks with elephants. Thank you, Paul. Right, you're watching the Chinese Breakfast Show. Me and Karuna, of course, and we're running right through live, as always, till 9 o'clock. I'm off for